Welcome to RSAC Conference 2025. We're here recording live from the CyberRisk TV studio in Broadcast Alley at Moscone West. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me for this interview is Theresa Lanowitz, Chief Evangelist at LevelBlue. Welcome, Theresa.
Hi, Adrian. It's great to be here.
Always good to talk with you. Always excited to read new reports, and I get to do that for a couple interviews today. And I especially enjoy these because you've got surveys. I love hearing what people are thinking, what people are looking at, and you always get a great sample size in these reports.
Yeah.
So let's start with the report itself. We've covered some of these cyber resilience reports in the past that LevelBlue has done. So catch me up with what this one is focused on. This is an annual report, correct?
Absolutely. This is the 2025 LevelBlue Futures Report. And this year, the theme is cyber resilience and business impact. Mm-hmm. This is our flagship piece of thought leadership research that we put out every year at about this time. And you'll see other pieces of thought leadership come from us over the course of the year. All of our research is vendor neutral, forward-looking, and actionable. And for this one, the LevelBlue 2025 Futures Report, the Cyber Resilience Business Impact, we went out, we surveyed 1,500 different cybersecurity leaders across 7 different industries and 16 different countries. So it's a pretty big sample size, nice global sample size, and definitely different types of industries out there.
Yeah, and I like that it is a global view. I actually had some interviews yesterday with some Singaporean organizations, and it was really interesting seeing that Southeast Asia perspective of things. So yeah, jumping into cyber resilience for people who aren't familiar with the term, or I think more likely people who have heard the term a lot, but haven't heard a lot of substance around what it means. Yeah. Like, let's go ahead and define what does cyber resilience mean when you guys say it?
Right, so the way we look at cyber resilience, and cyber resilience is definitely a theme that everybody is talking about now. Yeah. It is the way an organization coalesces together in the event of a cyber attack, some type of man-made disaster, or some type of natural disaster, fire, earthquake, flood, hurricane, and so on. Mm-hmm. How they keep the business operational and running. So you can think of it as a subset of disaster recovery.
Right.
And just because the word cyber is in front of it, doesn't mean it's only cybersecurity. Right. So when you have an outage, when you have a cyber breach, the cybersecurity team is not the one doing the remediation. You need to bring in developers, operations, maybe third parties, maybe part of your supply chain. So it's how all of those teams work together and coalesce to bring everything back on track.
Yeah, and you'll have legal involved, you'll have PR involved. There's somebody has to talk to customers, and assure them, when things are coming back up, what to expect. Do we need to placate customers with something?
It sounds like you're talking about a good incident response plan.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and again, when people think incident response, maybe they think DFIR, they think data, they think forensics and technical things. Yeah. But if you look at the difference between a company that handles an incident well, to me, that's a lot about cyber resilience. Is they've planned for this. They've trained for this. And you can tell the companies that haven't planned well because the response is very emotional. It's kind of scattered. It's, at first they deny that anything's happened, and then they begrudgingly admit that it happened, and the details kind of drip out. Maybe an employee leaks something, and it's just a mess, right? It's not well coordinated.
Well, here's a stat for you. Only 37% of our survey participants say that they have a formalized incident response plan.
Oh.
And to your point, you're talking about everybody has to come together. You have to be well prepared.
Yeah.
And let's say you have to go to manual processes while maybe some of your technology stack is down. You have to look at little things. Can I do this manually? Do I have paper? Do I have pencils for people?
Yeah.
Do I have all those things? And it's quite detailed in terms of the whole plan.
Yeah, and I think communication is key there, right? Like knowing, okay, when we have an incident, whose job is to do what? I was a chief incident handler for 5 years of my career for a large payment processor. And, early on, as I kind of learned the ropes and learned, made a lot of mistakes doing that, you'd find 4 people doing the same thing, like independently concluded, okay, I need to jump into SIM and do the search. And everybody's thinking, why are SIM queries taking so long? It's because all 4 of you are literally wrote the same query at the same time. and it's trying to serve all of it at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you just bottleneck the system. um, so, well, the nice thing about this being that is this is second year that you've done this survey, right?
This is the second year that we took a look at cyber resilience
Right.
and really how cyber resilience is impacting organizations across the board. Yeah.
So one of the nice things is you now have 2 data sets and you can
Right.
do some comparisons.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about what you're seeing that's changed over just 1 year.
Right, there's a lot that has changed over just 1 year. So if we take a look in 2024, 72% of governance organizations did not know what cyber resilience was. Now in 2025, that number dropped to 55%.
Oh, wow.
So 55% is still a lot of governance
Right.
organizations not knowing what cyber resilience is, but that is a dramatic drop.
For 1 year,
For
sure.
1 year. The other thing we're seeing is that in 2024, most executives did not really want to fund cyber resilience versus cybersecurity. They said, it's cyber. It has the word cyber in front of it. We're going to
Right.
say, well, we're already funding cybersecurity. We're not going to look at cyber resilience. So there was a lot of conflation between cybersecurity and cyber resilience. And then also in terms of overall where it fits organizationally. So those numbers have dropped dramatically between 2024 and 2025. And as I said, those numbers are still high. So there's a lot of education, I think, in the market about what cyber resilience really is, who it belongs to, who actually funds it. But it is a top-down priority, and we're seeing a lot more investment in it this year as well. 38% of our survey participants said that they are investing significantly in cyber resilience processes, procedures, and practices. So it's definitely on the radar, and it's also moving up the C-suite agenda into the boardroom as well. So once you have the board now saying, all right, we have to focus on cyber resilience, there's going to be a lot more work that goes on at the organizational level to say, here's our preparedness, here's what we're going to do, here's what's going to happen if we have a major outage that we weren't preparing for, or if we have a cyber breach. So there's a lot more organizationally that has to happen. So that's really good news. There's definitely improvements to be made, but it's definitely good news.
Yeah. And, I think one thing that's becoming clear and kind of helps with cyber resilience, I think, is the fact that like 15 years ago, we did have to make some guesses.
Yeah.
A lot of attacks were theoretical. We didn't have a lot of data on what was happening to companies that got breached. A lot of that was kept private.
Yeah.
So maybe we'd know a company got breached, but we wouldn't really know any details about what happened, how it happened. Fast forward to today, we've got all kinds of data on how this stuff happens,
Right.
what works, isn't working. And it seems maybe easier to make this proactive versus reactive argument when whatever you're talking about, whatever category of something in security, there's probably an example you can point to, a recent example
Right.
of, here's why this is important, right?
Right, and one of the things that we discovered in this particular piece of research is that there are characteristics that define a cyber resilient organization.
Okay.
One of them you brought up. You're very much more proactive in cybersecurity and what you're doing. But the other characteristics of a cyber resilient organization is that the cybersecurity team and the line of business are aligned. And that number moved dramatically between 2024 and 2025 as well. Last year we were seeing in the low 30s in terms of organizations being aligned with the line of business. Now we're seeing in the 60% range alignment with the line of business.
Yeah.
So cyber resilient organizations, cybersecurity, line of business aligned. They're also cyber resilient organizations. The cybersecurity team is using AI in their daily work, in their daily workflows, in their cybersecurity practice. And they're also much better prepared to defend against those AI generated attacks. So those are the top 3 characteristics. The 4th characteristic of a cyber resilient organization is that they're prepared for these new and emerging types of attacks that are
Right.
out there. So yes, they can defend well against ransomware,
Yeah.
business email.
So we could call that agility, right?
Agility, right?
Yeah.
So they can defend against AI-generated attacks, deep fakes, phishing, attacks on the software supply chain. So they can defend against all of that. But one of the biggest characteristics is that these cyber resilient organizations who self-identified in our research, they have not had a breach for 12 months. So, if you're out there and you're struggling to figure out, well, what am I doing for cyber resilience? How should I really go down the path of being cyber resilient? Take a look at this report and figure out which of those characteristics you're either lacking in or where you're hitting on those characteristics.
Yeah, and I think something you said there that I want to focus on a little bit is that connection between the business and cybersecurity. Like that alignment should have always been there. It
Right.
hasn't. But like a business impact analysis, I still don't see a lot of people doing that. And what's so important about that is I can't imagine cybersecurity succeeding in its mission, the security
Right.
team, if they
Right.
don't know what's important to the business,
Right.
or what the necessary recovery time is. You know, in a BIA, you've got tier 0 is maybe less than an hour, tier 1 is 4 hours. These things cannot be down for longer than this, or there's going to be
Right.
some kind of impact to the organization that can be measured in dollars.
And cybersecurity is a business requirement. So we know that if you are aligned, your cybersecurity team and your line of business are aligned, you're going to be able to deliver better business outcomes. If you can plan for cybersecurity in the budget of every project that you're undertaking, again, you're going to be able to deliver those better business outcomes. And that means that you can innovate more. You can adapt that risk and you can innovate more because cybersecurity is involved from the beginning. And again, that shouldn't be something that's new, but I think as cybersecurity moves from being just, let's figure out what controls we need, to really being an integrated part of the business, especially at the board level, I think we're going to see more and more of this.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about attacks and the attacks that we're seeing here and how prepared organizations are for them. So what did the report touch on there?
So one of the things we like to do, and again, this is a year-over-year comparison. Again, the top sort of traditional attacks, ransomware comes in at number 1. I don't think that's any surprise. Followed closely by phishing and business email compromise. And business email compromise has been kind of pushing into that top spot for a while. But what we also asked about were what type of sort of emerging types of attacks are you seeing?
Sure.
And
things that could be a bigger issue in the near future.
Could be, or you haven't seen a lot of them yet, or it just hasn't been on your radar, you haven't been looking for it. Phishing is a big problem.
QR codes?
QR codes. People scanning a QR code and putting in that personally identifiable information or that personal health information. So phishing is a big one. Deepfakes. Deepfakes are a real problem, and what we found out is that nearly 60% of our survey participants said that they're having a very, very difficult time discerning what is real and what is not real. So those deepfakes are a big issue. Then we also have the AI-generated attacks. So with AI, we saw generative AI come out and really write better phishing emails. What we're now seeing with agentic AI is the fact that now we have bots that can attach bots. And AI with the size, the speed, the scale, everything that AI can accomplish is just getting more and more difficult to defend against those attacks. And only 29% of our survey participants said that they are ready to defend against AI attacks.
Yeah, something I've remarked on before is the attacker side has a skills gap also. So anything that allows them to, go kind of beyond the manual processes, the human capital that they have on their side, could vastly increase the number of attacks they can run in parallel or handle at the same time.
Exactly. The adversaries, they're figuring out what their guardrails are for AI and generative AI and agentic AI attacks, just as organizations are.
And they don't have to wait to get permission to play with AI.
Right.
Right?
It's encouraged, right?
Yeah. So certainly one thing we're seeing, it doesn't make sense for everyone to have detection engineering experts on staff. It doesn't make sense for everyone to have expertise in, because cyber touches so much now.
Right.
You look at the CISO mind map, the stuff, everything a CISO has to worry about, you've got to outsource some of that. So something we've seen just growing more and more and more, the number of managed service providers out there. So talk a little bit about some of the trends we're seeing with outsourcing of some of these tasks and needs.
Well, we spoke about cyber resilient organizations. And what we also learned with cyber resilient organizations is they're more mature in thinking about some of these things, meaning they're not going to do everything on their own. They know they can't do everything on their own. We're entering into a whole
new phase.
They shouldn't. It's not your core competency, right? So these cyber resilient organizations, what they're doing is they're bringing in these trusted third-party advisors, these outside organizations, to really act as a strategic extension of their team. And they're doing that for things such as threat intelligence, incident response. We talked about the fact that prepared incident response plans are few and far between.
Yeah.
So they're bringing in threat intelligence experts, incident response experts, managed security services. Why build up a SOC on your own if you have a skills gap? Maybe you live in a geography where you can't attract cybersecurity professionals, so bring in managed security services. And then also just bringing in consultants to say, yes, this is what you need to be doing. And here's an interesting stat. It's to say, you know what, you need to bring in outside help. We see a lot of mergers and acquisitions going on.
Yeah.
Only 32% of organizations do due diligence with cybersecurity for mergers and acquisitions.
Oh.
So that's an appalling number, right? I mean, you wouldn't
I've
say...
seen that make or break an acquisition before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that 32%,
32%.
So
very, very low percent.
Less than 2/3.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's concerning. And we've seen some of that, right? Like we've seen, I remember specifically Marriott and Starwood. You know, there were some issues when that acquisition was happening, and I think the acquisition had already happened, and then he found a breach that happened a while ago. Like that's a common story that we see now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know that it's not them not doing the due diligence, to where maybe the attack just wasn't detected in the first place.
Could have
until
been,
after
yeah.
the merger happened, and sometimes the acquiring company just has better technology to find evidence of that attack. But yeah, I've seen that more as a product offering for a lot of cybersecurity companies where let's help you do that due diligence.
Yeah,
right?
that due diligence is critical.
You can outsource that as well, right?
Because as you said, cybersecurity touches everything. And so doing that due diligence is critical as well.
Yeah. So to wrap up here, what kind of recommendations are you giving in the report to, resilience is a very broad topic, so it helps to have some pointed, actionable things where you can start on that path.
So elevate cyber resilience up your C-suite level and up into the boardroom. Make it a board level issue. Foster that culture of cyber resilience to really say, here's what we need to do. We all need to come together. It's not about living in silos any longer. And then really making sure that you're focused on aligning cybersecurity in the line of business and looking at these emerging types of attacks, these emerging types of threats. One of the ones that we go into significant detail in the report is really in the area of the software supply chain. So making sure that you understand your software supply chain. Can you do forensics on the cybersecurity?
Yeah.
Can you do those forensics? Can you assign a confidence level to everybody in your supply chain? Do you know where your vulnerabilities?
It's not an easy task.
It's not, and do you know where your vulnerabilities are in the source code that you have? Where are you getting your source code? Source code is coming from so many places these days. And then finally, making sure you understand what happens if you fail a patch release. Are your patch releases passing or failing? And in too many cases, there will be a failed patch release, and the next thing you know, there's a major cyber outage or a major cyber incident that we're reading about in the news.
Yeah, and just talking about agility, we've seen so many cases where, maybe you're perfect and you're not going to get hit by ransomware, but a vendor that you're completely dependent on gets hit by ransomware, completely out of your control, and you've got to have the agility to say it's a payments provider. What's your backup payments provider? We've seen this happen in so many cases where billing got hit, payments got hit, and the company, revenue just goes to zero overnight. So identifying those kinds of risks, super important for resilience.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Theresa, for joining me today. I always enjoy reading your reports, having these conversations. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Adrian. It was great to be here.
All right, to find out more about LevelBlue, please visit securityweekly.com/LevelBlue RSAC. For all RSAC 2025 conference coverage by Cyber Risk Alliance, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC. And stick around, we'll be back after the break with more interviews live from RSAC Conference 2025. Thanks again.
Thank you. This was fun.